2023 was all about launching the tech and building our developer community, building the ecosystem. 2024 is all about bringing the world to Radix.
What is Radix, and why is it radically different from everything else in crypto?
Radically different because transaction fees are incredibly low. Radically different because the security is much, much higher. Radically different because the user experience is something that an everyday person can use rather than someone who is like a full-on crypto geek. And radically different because it's actually built to be the infrastructure for the world long term.
Why do some people say that this project could be bigger than Avalanche, bigger than Injective, even bigger than Solana?
Because we built the Radix engine from scratch instead of taking the EVM, we get 80% efficiency on Radix, which means that to get the same throughput that Solana does on their 65,000 transactions per second, but 275 DEX swaps per second, the Radix network only needs to be able to do like 300 or 400 transactions per second to be able to get the same throughput that Solana does.
And what is Project Ignition? How can you best take advantage of their $10 million liquidity incentive program? Look, Radix has big plans for 2024 and beyond. Here to give us that alpha is the CEO of the organization behind Radix, Pierce Ridyard of RDX Works. Smash the like button. Let's get into it. Radix is about to boom. It's not a question of when, it's a question of right now. Don't sleep on Radix. Here to update us on their new 2024 and beyond game plan, Pierce Ridyard, CEO of RDX Works. Pierce, how are you doing today?
I'm very good. Thank you very much for having me on the show.
Thank you for coming on. And before we get into the exciting things that Radix has going on now, we've talked about Radix before, but let's remind everybody, because this is a new bull market. Why is Radix such an exciting project? What is it? And how does it fit into the broader crypto market today?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that the easiest way of thinking about Radix is we started with a really big vision. We're like, look, we think that blockchain technology is the new financial layer for the world. And if that's going to be true, it's going to be as revolutionary to the world as the internet was. And when the internet came along, it's this open platform for innovation that anyone could come and build on top of. And that's what these blockchain technologies represent, is this new space for innovation. And you're already seeing a huge amount of that happening in the space, but you're also seeing all of these problems, right? We see scalability issues. Yes, we've got layer twos, but now that's creating its own set of problems. You have this fractionalization of liquidity, you have all of these different venues, and layer twos themselves are not, they just sort of moved up the total amount of scalability that you can get. They don't actually solve the problem of scalability. But what's worse than that from a user's point of view is that every single day there are hacks and exploits that happen, either as a result of users using MetaMask and blind signing things and not understanding, or not understanding how to use seed phrases, or getting scammed on Twitter. Or there are the hacks and exploits that are happening at the smart contract level, where, you know, billions of dollars is being stolen every day. And the reason that this is kind of crazy is because blockchain's now been around, you know, really since Bitcoin started in 2008, but like Ethereum started in 2015. And in most industries, if things kept breaking, you would expect them to be fixed. But the reason they can't be is because the way that public ledgers work, you can't change how the state model works. You can't change fundamentally how these net ledgers work once they're live. So I kind of call blockchain today as a tech demo. It's a great example of what the possibility of this could be. You know, a full financial layer for the world where everyone can transact instantly, where everything can be represented by a token and be transacted and used instantaneously, and where you can exchange any good or service via that platform. You know, and I think financial markets is the first place that started, but that extends to the possibility of everything. And so we kind of boil this down to this idea of identity and ownership, like the things that we want sovereignty over. That's what the possibility of these platforms are. So what Radix did is it went, okay, we understand blockchain is an exciting technology because of the possibility, but let's think forwards and be like, what will the world be like when everything is on top of public ledger? And what does that ledger need to look like from the point of view of its capabilities to get to that place? And let's architect our system for that. Let's spend the time, instead of rushing to market, let's spend the time to actually think about that really hard. So the first thing you know is that you're going to need scalability to an almost incomprehensible level, right? The entire financial market today does about 5 million transactions per second. But when before the internet came along, you used to use telephone and fax to be able to send information around. If you measured what you thought the bandwidth requirements of the internet were going to be just based on telephone and fax, you would be way off by like an order of magnitude, by thousands, if not millions, right? So what Radix did is it went, no, like you can't have any cap to scalability. You have to be able to linearly scale. But when you linearly scale, you have to make sure that you maintain this ability to do things instantaneously, that you're able to call many different applications, many different dApps, many different token types, and use them all in the same sort of single transaction. So you had to maintain what's technically called atomic composability. So we spent 7 years doing the research and development to be able to build a linearly scalable algorithm that was able to maintain atomic composability without needing layer 2s, without needing these like extra like widgets on top of a fundamental layer 1. And so that innovation was done with the University of California, Davis, and has been published in Computer Science Journal. And that was the basis for the architecture that we knew the world would eventually need. And we started with that as the starting design. The next thing to solve was all of these hacks and exploits. So instead of taking the EVM, the Ethereum virtual machine, or taking Solidity, we didn't take any of that. We said, no, the way that they're approaching this is fundamentally wrong for building Web3 and DeFi. What you need is a programming language built for Web3 and DeFi, something that actually understands that the most important objects on these ledgers are tokens, and the most important things you can do is transactions. So we built the Radix engine, which is our equivalent of the EVM, and Scripto, which is a programming language built specifically for Web3 development. And built because we were able to go and interview, we went and talked with almost 1,000 developers building in the Web3 space about all of the problems they were facing. And we put that learning into the Radix engine and Scripto and created this incredibly easy to use programming language, an incredibly versatile execution environment that was also incredibly efficient. And so that means that you end up in this situation where you can build programs that are much harder to exploit and hack. Like on Radix, you don't have problems of unsafe reentrancy. On Radix, you don't have problems of signature manipulation. You don't have problems of permission escalation. Like all of these things that are creating the hacks and exploits that you see in DeFi, that's gone on the Radix engine and Scripto. And then the last thing that we realized had to be true for the world to be relying on this as a fundamental, universal financial layer was it had to be easy to use. If you look at the user base of crypto, like if you say to someone on the street, hey, you into crypto? They'll be like, yeah, I'm into crypto. I've got like some Bitcoin on Coinbase. The user base difference between exchanges and going and using dApps directly is something like 100-to-1 ratio. There's like if every 100 people on exchanges, there's like only one person using Uniswap and using Aave and using things like that. And the reason for that is the user experience is so difficult. So I kind of call this right now our AOL online period. Because when people were first getting on the internet, you had to go and you used AOL online. You didn't use the internet directly. You used this like weird walled garden. And that's what crypto exchanges are. They're these weird walled gardens that don't actually let you experience Web3 and DeFi directly. And so what we did is we built this entirely new wallet experience from the ground up that means that you always can understand every transaction you make. You never have to blind sign anything. You have seed phrase free onboarding, and you have the ability to recover your account in a completely decentralized way. So you can, in the way that would feel familiar to you, recovering your email account or recovering your bank account access, but you can do this in a completely non-custodial, decentralized way on Radix. So getting rid of all of the things that are hard about using crypto and getting rid of all of the things that are hard about onboarding crypto. And that was only possible because of how we built our stack together around this idea that everyone has to be able to use this platform. Everyone has to be able to access it and feel that they're comfortable using it. And Radix launched that stack live on the 28th of October last year. So, sorry, 28th of September last year. So just about the start of October. And so that's when all of that research, all of that time and effort, all of those user interviews, all of that academic research started to actually run, and the DeFi ecosystem and the Web3 ecosystem started to build on top of the Radix network.
And is that what you mean by Radix is like true DeFi or like radically different DeFi? Are the other things we know in crypto not true DeFi? Can you explain this?
So radically different DeFi rather than true DeFi. So radically different DeFi, and that's what it means when we're talking about this, right? Is like radically different because transaction fees are incredibly low. Radically different because the security is much, much higher. Radically different because the user experience is something that an everyday person can use rather than someone who is like a full-on crypto geek. And radically different because it's actually built to be the infrastructure for the world long term, rather than sort of being these like stopgap technology advances where we've just got steadily more complex in how we've tried to do things, like, you know, ZK rollups on top of a layer 1, and now we're talking about layer 3s, and like all of this complexity that's being built into an architecture that wasn't fundamentally suitable in the first place.
I read your blog post, I saw your video, it got me excited. Breakout 2024, not when, but now, talking about liquidity incentives, bringing usership to the network, Radix taking its rightful place on the leaderboard of crypto. Could you tell us about this? What does this all mean?
Sure. Yeah. So 2023 was all about launching the tech and building our developer community, building the ecosystem. 2024 is all about bringing the world to Radix. So we recently launched our Project Ignition liquidity incentives. And that's like a super easy way of getting involved with Radix. If you've got Bitcoin, ETH, USDC, or USDT, you bring along your Bitcoin, ETH, USDC, USDT to Project Ignition. And via one of the 3 Radix dexes that are live on Radix, you can then push your liquidity in, your Bitcoin, your ETH, your USDC, or your USDT, and it matches you with Radix on the other side. So you don't actually have to own any Radix to do this. You push it into the DEX, and it protects you from impermanent loss. It pays you 20% upfront in Radix for locking it between 9 and 12 months. 20% upfront in Radix, so you get Radix straight away. You didn't even have to buy it. You just push in some liquidity that you already own. And you then double up on your fees on the DEX. So the DEX fees on the moment in Radix are like 20, 30% that you're seeing sort of people earning on Caviar 9, on Aussie Swap, on DeFi Plaza. And then you also get the emissions of the incentive tokens that each of these platforms are issuing. So, you know, if you look at the returns of Project Ignition versus hodling Bitcoin or hodling ETH or hodling USDC, why would you do that in a bull market? But, you know, hodling USDC, then it's incredibly juicy. But you also get this impermanent loss protection that you don't get on other platforms, which means that even if, you know, Radix is incredibly volatile or Bitcoin is incredibly volatile, at the end of it, you'll still get the value out that you put in. And so I think it's a really exciting program. It's been, you know, in the first 24 hours, we're already like 40% subscribed on it. And, you know, that's still open. People can get involved. And that's the first part of the Breakout 2024 plan. But the whole thing for Breakout 2024 is steadily building that crescendo over the year. So in the middle of the year, we've just had a new Perpetuals DEX. So if anyone likes Perpetuals, GMX, Jupiter, you know, Merkle Trade, these kind of things, there's a new Perpetuals DEX that's being built on Radix called Surge.trade, which is going to be coming out a little bit later this year. And then in the middle, you know, sort of, then we're going to be doing this user onboarding campaign. And our user onboarding campaign is a little bit different. We've spent a decent amount of time working with a award-winning mobile game studio to create this whole experience around getting you downloaded on the wallet, understanding how to use the wallet, and then taking you through how to use the ecosystem, how to understand what it is to be Radix, what makes it radically different, and taking you on this journey. And so we're really excited for that to go live, and that's going to be going live later on this year. And we're going to be putting a multi-million-dollar marketing campaign behind that, and sort of making sure that we're getting sort of users into the Radix ecosystem. And then we have a bunch of other stuff that's coming on later this year as well. So like it's going to be a really big year for us.
That is a very exciting. So the liquidity incentive is bringing on liquidity, bringing on new users, and you talked about the perpetual DEX and a couple other DeFi products on the horizon. Does this mean that Radix is going to upend, projects like AVAX or Solana or maybe even Injective? It sounds like it's going to be competing directly.
Yeah, and I think, the mistake that a lot of these projects, these ones that you're talking about, AVAX, Injective, Solana, have taken is they basically took the iterative approach. They went, okay, we see what's happening on Ethereum, and in some cases they just went, we're just going to copy it and put it on a more scalable system. But there's a bunch of problems that come with that, right? Just outside of the user problems, like MetaMask being a terrible user experience, all of the hacks and exploits that can happen within Solidity and the EVM. There's also the fact, and like no one talks about this because it looks terrible for almost everyone, right? On top of, what's the transactional throughput of Solana? What's the advertised transactional throughput of Solana?
I'm not sure offhand. It's, 1,000, I'm not sure.
65,000 transactions per second, right? 65,000 transactions per second. Sounds like a big number. Sounds pretty good, right? Avalanche is like 5,000, right? Sounds like a big number. Sounds pretty good. Over something like Ethereum, which is like 30. The truth is, though, that the majority of transactions that happen on top of public ledgers, the majority of them, like 80%, 90% or more during bull runs, are smart contract interactions. And the majority of those smart contract interactions are DEX swaps. Like Uniswap on its own is like 60% of Ethereum gas fees, right? Now, if we go, all right, so the majority of the thing that people are using your platform for are DEX swaps, how many DEX swaps per second can you do? Solana can do 275. 275 DEX swaps per second on 65,000 transactions per second. Avalanche is like 78, or maybe it's a little bit more. They make like 130. And so what you get is what we call the DeFi efficiency index, right? Which is like your transaction, your DEX swaps per second divided by the throughput of your network. And for both of them, it's like less than 1%. It's actually like 0.1%, which is crazy. Because we built the Radix engine from scratch instead of taking the EVM, we get 80% efficiency on Radix, which means that to get the same throughput that Solana does on their 65,000 transactions per second, but 275 DEX swaps per second, the Radix network only needs to be able to do like 300 or 400 transactions per second to be able to get the same throughput that Solana does. And that inherited problem of just taking what already existed and when we just need to make it faster, that's going to solve everything, is this cul-de-sac that everyone's kind of gone down. And like while Solana did build their own architecture to some extent, they didn't focus on the importance of efficiency when it comes to smart contract execution. They only focused on the importance of like efficiency of throughput. And so that's led to this problem of like transactions per second don't matter, guys. It's Web3 interactivity that matters. And that's what you really need to be building for. So from that point of view, I'm comfortable. From the point of view of our algorithm choice, we have linear scalability, so we don't have this upper limit. We don't go 65,000 transactions per second, or as computers get faster, it'll get faster, like Solana says, or this sort of way of doing subnets that Avalanche has. We've taken a completely new approach that just opens up the space to be able to have massive scalability and massive efficiency. But then on top of that, we've created this incredible usability. When we were interviewing these DeFi developers and these Web3 developers and these DeFi companies, sort of back in 2019, 2020, there's two problems that were their burning problems. When we went to them and said, what's your number one and number two business problem, right? Number one business problem wasn't scalability. Even in the height of DeFi summer, it wasn't scalability. They weren't going, scalability is stopping people putting money into Aave. Scalability is stopping people putting money into Uniswap. No, like everyone was competing to put money into those places. Their number one problem was we can't hire good devs. We can't hire enough good developers. And their number 2 problem was that their bounce rate from their website to someone actually being able to put money into their platform was like 98%. So a customer who's like, oh, I want to use this thing, converting into a user. So for every 100 users that were coming to their platform, only 2 were converting. And the big problem was the usability, not of their dApp, but of the interfaces, the wallets and the way that they accessed it. So from the point of view of like what makes Radix different, that also makes Radix different. We've not only made a really easy programming language that many developers can pick up, because if you look at the crypto space, there's like 25,000 Web3 developers. There's 25 million developers in the world today. Like, where's most of the innovation going to come for the future of tomorrow that Web3 is going to be? It's all going to be coming from the people coming outside of the space in. So you need a programming language that makes it incredibly easy for people to get up and running and build secure stuff quickly, so that those great innovators and entrepreneurs can hire the teams they need to expand quickly. And to do that, you need a programming language that's specifically for building Web3, which is what Scripto is. And then to not have the problem of every, $100, if it costs you $1 to get someone to come and look at your platform and get interested, and only 2 people are converting out of over 100, $98 is being wasted. But if you have a user onboarding and wallet experience that makes it super easy to use Web3 and DeFi, suddenly your efficiency on your marketing spend and your ability to onboard people goes massively up. And that's the other thing that Radix provides. And so like that's how I look at the competitive space. I go like, it's fine that you guys are building more scalability, but it's not really the complete picture, and it's not, and even that isn't enough.
I encourage anybody from our audience to check out Radix, everything linked below. And we've talked about some of this, but just, in brief, for those who have never done anything within the Radix ecosystem, what are the things, somebody who has Bitcoin, Ethereum, stablecoins, what are the things that somebody could do?
Sure. So Project Ignition is a big one, right? But there are currently 3 DEXs on Radix. There is Caviar 9, Aussie Swap, and DeFi Plaza. Caviar 9 is a concentrated liquidity DEX built by a couple of ex-Barclays quant traders. Really, really solid platform that's already been performing incredibly well within the Radix space. Super easy to use interface, much easier to use from the point of view of liquidity provision than something like Uniswap v3. Aussie Swap has just launched a implementation of Uniswap v4. Now, Uniswap v4 isn't even live on Ethereum. Uniswap v4 is just an idea that the Uniswap Foundation put out. And Aussie Swap has already implemented all of the features and functionality of Uniswap v4 a year before Uniswap v4 is even expected on Ethereum on Radix. And the reason they were able to do that is Scripto. Right? Scripto just makes it so much easier to get to market quickly with good ideas. And DeFi Plaza, which is a really cool DEX that is doing like impermanent loss protection for liquidity provision. Those are 3 things you can do now. You can do lending and borrowing on Weft Finance, which is kind of like Aave. You can go and use NFTs and the NFT marketplace. There's Radland is currently live, and then there's Photon that's going to be launching soon, which is kind of like OpenSea, but in Radix land way, which means that you get all of these great user experiences. In the wallet, your NFTs will instantly appear, and you'll have all, your JPEG will be visible, and you'll have like a full sort of a gallery you can go through that's already integrated into the wallet. So if you're buying NFTs on Radix, you get all of that nice interactivity on your wallet. We've got, as I said, Surge.traders coming up. We've got XRD domains. Anyone who knows Ethereum domains and the ENS Foundation, XRD domains is kind of like that, but on steroids. It basically allows you to create a routing system for any public ledger addressing. So like you can have a Radix address in it and it can route to that, but if you have a Solana address, you can put that in there. If you have a SWI address, you can put that in there. If you have a, sort of a near address, you can put that in there. And the way that it selects it means that it always knows what network that you're wanting to send a transaction to, and will return the correct address for you. But it also allows you to add domains. You can use it as your own domain, and you can add like smart contracts to it. So you can have uniswap.xrd, and when you put that in, that takes you straight to the Uniswap contract. So that's a really cool thing. But they did a really interesting launch in our community recently, where basically all domains are NFTs. So when you buy the domain and you own the NFT, you're able to change all of the information about it, but you can sell that domain and transfer it immediately. And so there's this really cool system of basically tokenizing domain ownership that people are getting really engaged with. There's Trove, which is basically an NFT trading platform that allows you to do OTC deals as well as like auctions. The auctions is coming very soon. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff like the kind of stuff that you'll find in other ecosystems, you'll find in Radix, but you'll just find the user experience so much better. And you'll see that things are coming out with more functionality quicker on Radix just because of the advantages the stack gives you.
Very exciting. And with the liquidity incentives and user incentives you guys have just started, I think we're going to be seeing and hearing a lot more from Radix. And I'm excited about that. Guys, check out Radix below. Go play around in their ecosystem. Pierce, thank you so much for coming on today. Give us the final call to action, final outlook for the Altcoin Daily audience.
I mean, if you got Bitcoin, if you got ETH, if you got USDC, you got USDT, go put it into Project Ignition, because not only are you going to get to see all of the great user experiences that I've been talking about, you get to participate directly in the Radix ecosystem, you get XRD essentially for free, and it's a great way to get your start in Radix.
Excellent. Pierce, thank you so much.